This is the agenda for tonight's session on fundraising. I'll share some basic information, some best practices and principles, and then we're going to get more specific, talking about money out, which is your budget, and then the money in, what you need to fundraise. And then we'll wrap up with some next steps and additional resources. So, jumping into fundraising basics, and I'm actually going to look for some input here in the chat. If you want to type in the chat, why do we fundraise? Why are you here tonight to get some information and advice about fundraising? Gain visibility? Yes. Here we go. Okay, gain visibility to cover our expenses, gain trust, money to fund your campaign, pay for staff, send mail. Maybe the person who raises the most money wins, maybe not, but that is possible. Gain community support. Yeah. Okay. All of this. So, one of the sayings around campaigns that you might have heard or you will start hearing is winning elections takes three things: time, talent, and treasure. We talked last week in the strategic planning session about time and scheduling out your campaign. Talent is all the people involved in your campaign. You as a candidate, if you have a campaign manager, the volunteers who support you, everybody who is helping run your campaign. And then the treasure, it's a fact that it does take money to run campaigns. I'm not excited about that, but those are the rules of the game, and we're going to play by those rules. And I want to give some tips to help you raise money to fund your campaign. When it comes to your fundraising strategy, a couple of fundamental questions that you should be asking yourself, thinking about, and documenting in your campaign plan. How much will you need to raise? I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Will you be able to contribute any money to your own campaign? Maybe, maybe not. If so, how much? Are there limits? So, caps on individual donors and how much they can give you, overall fundraising thresholds. Some communities have different limits, so make sure that you know what the limits are for your race and if your community has something special. This is something your county party can probably tell you about. We'll talk about the role of a treasurer. They can probably help you with this. You may be able to call your county board of elections and ask them as well. They are a tremendous resource. They don't want you to get in trouble, so they are there to help you as well. Also, think about how you're going to track your donations and track the money that you're spending. This is one of the things that can vary quite a bit depending on the size of your race. I ran a city council race where I raised and spent $15,000. For me, using a Google spreadsheet, and I'm going to share a template with you, the exact template that I used. The Google spreadsheet was necessary, but not overkill. If you are here because you're thinking in 2026 you are going to run for Congress or the state assembly, and you're looking at $1 million plus race, you might need a more robust tool. But for most of you, having a spreadsheet is probably going to be enough to track this. When it comes to going back, how much will you need to raise? One way for you to figure this out is to see what it has cost in the past for people who ran for the seat that you are interested in. Chris just dropped a link in the chat, and I'll save it in the follow-up email as well. That goes to this website that I have a screenshot of here, where you can see campaign finance reports for previous candidates. Look for the people who have run for the seat you're interested in, the past couple election cycles, two, maybe three. See how much each person spent? What is the average amount they spent? Did the winner spend twice as much as the loser? Where did they spend comparable amounts of money? That will start giving you a sense of what your fundraising goal should be. Also, when I send out this information in the follow-up email, I've got this orange clicky graphic. Wherever you see that on the slides, when you click on that, it's going to take you directly to that link. So you'll have that handy. Some rules of thumb. This is not gospel. This is not 100% fact, and you can't dare have a different circumstance. But what I want to share with you are generally, these are some principles to think about. Your situation might be a little different, but first of all, how much you raise is going to impact how many voters you can reach. Campaigns do cost money. We'll talk in a little bit when we talk about money out, the tactics that you might choose to spend your money on. But it will impact how many voters you can reach. Rule of thumb here, fundraise early, spend late. You don't want to be having a fundraising event on October 30th when the election is November 4th. When you're at the late stage of the campaign, you need that time to be talking to voters. So try to front load your fundraising activities as much as you can. I said to someone earlier today, it's like 347 degrees outside. Um, for me, that's a little hot to knock on doors and talk to voters. So use this opportunity right now to front load that fundraising and raise money now. I encourage you to plan for three scenarios. Think about high, medium, low. So this would be um, you look at what is the average the races have cost in previous years. That's my medium goal. I want to meet that number perhaps. What does your budget, what does your fundraising strategy look like if you turn out to be a super duper popular candidate and people are throwing money at you? What does it look like if it turns out this is a difficult year for fundraising and you're not able to raise as much as you had hoped? I had three scenarios and I knew exactly that if I hadn't raised X number of dollars by September 1st, then I could only send two pieces of direct mail instead of sending the four that I really wanted to send. So think about what tactics you might add or have to subtract depending on how your fundraising is tracking to your goal. Don't forget about your startup and shutdown costs. So you've probably already had some cost, right? Filing fees. Maybe you paid somebody to design a logo or a website. You're also going to have some expenses after election day. So keep an eye on those. For example, your website. You're going to have hosting fees if you have a website. Will your hosting fees end and your campaign website go away on December 1st? You'll probably have a treasurer assisting you with your filing. Sometimes a treasurer charges based on a fee based on the number of reports they file for you. So you might need to have some money set aside after the campaign to cover those treasurer costs as well. But spend it all. It doesn't do you good to raise $30,000 and only spend $5,000 on your campaign. What you raise, you should spend. You raise $2,000, spend $2,000. Just keep in mind you're going to have some of those wrap-up costs because I don't want you to exceed your budget and have to pay that out of pocket. Also, your budget, which is the money out, and your fundraising plan, which is the money in, track that regularly, update it all the time. For my campaign, I looked at that every morning first thing. How much did I raise yesterday? How much did I spend yesterday? How am I tracking to my goals? Okay, you're officially a candidate. If you've filed your paperwork and you're running in 2025, you are a candidate. So when you submitted your paperwork, you put your campaign committee's name. Keep that handy. You will need it all the time on a bunch of paperwork and things like that. You get an identification number from the State Board of Elections. If you are planning on raising and spending more than $1,000, which you probably should plan for, you can. Chris just dropped this link here. So you're going to need to name your treasurer. And when you open a campaign bank account, the bank will probably ask you for an EIN, employee identification number. You can request that from the IRS. Chris dropped the link in the chat, and I will share it in the follow-up email. And these are a couple of steps on how to navigate it because, as is often the case, government paperwork can be confusing. So you would be requesting that number for a political organization for banking purposes. The State Board of Elections has a really important resource for you as well. So, the State Board of Elections has the campaign finance manual on their website, includes the schedule of when your financial reports need to be filed, and your treasurer, if they have not in the past year attended treasurer training, they need to do that. It is mandatory. Looking at the treasurer training list just in the past hour or so, and it looks like the candidate trainings are happening with a lot of regularity over the next month. Some of them are in person at county Board of Elections offices, and they also have some Zoom options. And with that, that kind of wraps up our fundraising basics. I'm going to talk about money out next. But Sarah, have you seen anything in the chat that we should talk about?
Yes. So somebody said that they thought there might be a cost for an EIN. That's news to me, and I believe I have not seen that in the past, but I'm certainly defer to other people.
What I would recommend, and based on personal experience and getting scammed a little bit when I renewed my passport, if I just Googled like passport renewal, it took me to like a third party that charged me money to print out the papers to send to the State Department. So maybe if you Googled it and you ended up on a website that was not the actual IRS website, um, because I didn't pay for that either.
Seems like a lot of folks in the chat have also gotten it for free. So use the link that Christy will supply. That should take you right to the IRS's website. And then somebody was asking if they could use an EIN that they have for a business that they already own.
I would, I don't know the legal answer, but I would say you probably do not want to do that. I would guess that's not legal, but what you really don't want is intermingling of funds, your personal funds versus campaign funds, or your business funds and campaign funds. It's kind of asking for trouble.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And folks agree. It's commingling. They're two different entities. So yes, that would be my answer as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sarah. And keep putting those questions in the chat. I can't keep up with it while I'm training, but we will have a couple of opportunity.
There is one more question about whether you can use your social security number for your campaign instead of an EIN. I would go with an EIN. Chris, you look like you're about to say something different.
No, I'm not going to say something different. For campaign purposes, the State Board of Elections, they probably don't care. However, when you open a bank account, that's really when I think you need to have that EIN number. When I
There
did,
are,
it was free, it was fast.
yeah, you can pretty much do it, I think, on the spot. There are some banks where there's a bit of a circular problem, like you need the campaign committee number in order to open the bank account, but in order to get the campaign committee set up, you need a bank account. So there may be some stuff to work through. That would be my only flag about that stage. And you can sometimes explain to the bank what you need to do. You can sometimes ask the Board of Elections what you need to do to get past the stall, like sort of this the stall, or you can ask a candidate who's done this before which banks will like help you through that process.
Yeah, I was going to recommend that too because not every single bank will do political accounts just because of the extra steps and stuff. So yeah, ask somebody who's currently elected official or has run before, county party, something like that. Yep. Okay, let's talk about money out because this, in my mind, is a little bit more fun than money in. I'd rather spend it. So that's where I'm going to start today. I wanted to share some ideas about the kinds of expenses you might have. Again, this is going to vary wildly depending on the size of the race you're running. Is it Charlotte Mayor or is it my Holly Springs, town council? So also for some of these things, I put dollar amounts when I kind of had a sense of them in my head, just so you have a ballpark of what to think about. But you might have a website. I recommend having a website. The expense for that I found to be worth it. For a website, you're going to need to buy your domain name, the URL. There will be hosting expenses. We can provide a template on Wix, a design template if you're interested in that. These are the prices roughly for like Squarespace or Wix, which are tools I've used and I recommend. And with Squarespace or Wix, you might be able to just use their templates to design it. But if it's a bigger, more involved race, you might pay someone to do that design work for you. You will want literature. I think this might be like the one thing on this list that I would recommend to every single candidate. This is some piece of literature that you can hand out to people when you meet them, when you knock on their doors. I don't really have anything like that handy with me, but something like this, right? It's a printed piece. It's got your picture on it. Sarah's got examples. She had them out earlier. It's got your picture on it. It's got your what office you're running for, why people should vote for you. It has maybe if you've got some endorsements. So you will.
Voting dates, put the
I'm sorry.
voting dates on there.
Mhm.
hmm
So this is something, it can be a postcard size. It can be big and elaborate. Again, depends on your budget. So printing that, the paper, having someone potentially design it, that is something that you might be spending money on. If you want to text voters, you can use a texting tool to make it faster. And that usually costs 3 to 5 cents per text to send. When I was planning my campaign, I knew I wanted to text through a particular group of people 3 times, and it was 5,000 people 3 times, 15,000 people times 5 cents per text. I was able to put that into my budget and plan for that. Direct mail, you might be considering, direct mail can be quite expensive, designing, printing, postage. Again, think about how many pieces you would want to send, get a sense of what it costs per piece to plan that in your budget. Paid advertising, think of this in terms of traditional or digital. So traditional advertising is going to be TV ads, radio ads, probably not going to have that. But you might do some digital advertising where you pay to boost one of your posts. Maybe if you have a post that says, "Hi, I'm Sarah O'Brien and I'm running for town council," and you've got a video of you and it looks really professional and exciting, maybe you spend 20 bucks on Facebook boosting that post so more people in your community see it. And then when it comes to staff, you might have a campaign manager or maybe somebody who is helping you part-time that you might compensate. And also, your treasurer is someone who might be charging you based on the number of filing reports they assist you with. What are you unlikely to need to spend money on? So, especially if you're running 2025, a municipal race, if you're running 26 and you're running for the state assembly, or you're Roy Cooper, you're running for US Senate, different ball game. But for a municipal race in 25, you're probably not going to need office space. You're probably not going to need multiple full-time staffers with benefits. You're probably not going to need TV or radio ads. Also, you're not going to need to buy office equipment, computers, cell phones, printers, copiers, postage meters. So you're not going to need to buy those kinds of things. You probably already have a phone, and hopefully you already have a computer. You're on Zoom right now. So that will, those will be expenses that you don't need for this type of race. Part of the reason I'm sharing that is because um, I am going to share this campaign budget template. Chris will drop it in the chat. This is a resource from Arena, which is a political training organization that I'm a big fan of. So I'm sharing a few of their templates because they're really, I found them to be very helpful. What you will have to do is sign up on the Arena website to get access to their toolbox, and then you will be able to access these documents. So there is a campaign budget template. So you don't need to create something. You can track your planned expenses week by week. It'll categorize the type of expenses. If you're running for a municipal race this year, there are probably a lot of things that you in there that you can just ignore, like office equipment and staffing. But I was planning out, when am I going to want to print my direct mail piece? And when am I going to do the bulk of my texting? All of those expenses, you can plan it out so you know I need to raise X number of dollars by this date because I have an expense coming. Another template here to share with you from Arena. This is a campaign cash tracker. So you may have heard or will start hearing the term cash on hand. This is how much money you have around that you can spend, not how much you're planning on raising. How much do you have right now? So people might ask you what your cash on hand is. It can be an indicator of your viability as a candidate. That's one of the concepts we talked about last week. But this tracker will help you know what's in the bank account, what invoices am I expecting to come that haven't hit yet, what donations am I expecting to come that haven't hit yet. And this will help you keep an eye on your cash on hand, so that if something pops up, an opportunity comes up or something, you'll be able to make a quick decision and say, yes, I can in fact go forward with this text campaign, or yes, I am ready to print some yard signs, or maybe the cash on hand isn't what I had hoped it would be at this point, so I will only have the budget to print 100 yard signs instead of 250, something like that. So Chris dropped that link in the chat. Thank you, Chris. Okay, pausing here. Sarah, has anything come up in the chat?
Nope, not for that section.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about money in. So, how are you going to raise the money to pay for those expenses? And your fundraising plan should be specific enough that you know who is doing what and by when. So, first, let's talk about the likely sources of revenue, the likely sources of donations for your campaign. And I've got a list here on the screen. And I also am going to share some general rules of thumb in terms of how much of your overall budget is likely to come from each of these line items. So, call time and to a much lesser extent, I think, for municipal candidates meetings. I'm going to focus on call time. Call time is really going to be 50%, maybe more in a municipal race of the money you need to raise. So if the average amount of money that previous people have spent running for your seat, if people on average spend $10,000 to run for that race, you need to plan to raise at least 5,000 of that through call time. Another way to raise revenue, to generate donations, is through fundraising events. Considering that it is almost August and election is November, earlier if you're in some communities or you have a primary, I would say you probably don't have a whole lot of time to do fundraising events in this case. If you're running in 2026, you have more time. If you are attending this training and you're a county party chair, you would probably be at the higher end of that range. Digital and email. So the range here is 3 to 15%. I think we're all, a bit fried by the random fundraising texts we get from people we don't know. I would encourage you, there's going to be a training in August. Act Blue, which is the main fundraising tool for Democrats across the country, they're going to do a training in August on email fundraising best practice. So more to come on that. Um, More to come from Act Blue next month. Direct mail. Direct mail for fundraising purposes. I kind of feel like probably not going to happen for most of you running for municipal races here in 2025. It takes a long lead time. I just don't, I'm kind of thinking that's probably potentially appropriate for people running in 2026, but it's really got to be a pretty big campaign to spend the money on printing and postage. Also, it should be incredibly targeted and only go to people who never donate on Act Blue and only want to mail in a check. So, probably not so much for your municipal races. I'll talk a little bit about political action committees and getting endorsements and how that might lead to donations. And then we've got our potpourri here. We've got other. You can't plan for other. Your time for a municipal race in 2025 is mostly going to be on call time, probably maybe a fundraising event or two, and then including a fundraising ask on digital channels and in email. As I mentioned for meetings, I think that's more likely to be a part of your plan if you're running for the General Assembly or higher office. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that. But call time. Call time is going to be very important. So we're going to focus on that for a little bit. Call time is scheduled, dedicated time where you are picking up the phone and calling people and asking them to donate to your campaign. You should be prepared in advance for call time. And what that means is you should know who you're calling, know a little bit about them so that call time is literally just you on the phone making those calls. I recommend that you have somebody with you when you're doing call time. We call this staffing. Someone should staff you for call time. They are there to help take notes. They are there to hold you accountable. This should be your supportive friend who's a little mean. Sometimes I found I wanted to procrastinate call time. It is not the easiest thing in the world for me to ask people for money. So having somebody who's going to say, no, 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 this is not for scrolling on Instagram, make your phone calls, not someone who you're going to end up chit-chatting with. It's really important to have somebody staff you and have it be someone who is going to keep you on task. It's also important to thank your donors after they donate, not during call time. Set aside a different time for that. Those are fun. I had kind of a an idea in my head that if someone gave me a max out donation, which for my race was $750. So someone who maxed out, I sent them a very lovely handwritten note card in the mail. If somebody donated on Act Blue, not as a result of call time, I would send them a text and say, "Hey, I saw you donated. Thank you so much." If someone, donated $300, I would probably call them and say, "Thank you for that donation." I'd also probably then be asking them if they could donate again. Ah, I already had that point on the slide. Your most likely donors are people who have already donated. So don't think that because someone's donated once, then that's it. Particularly if they donate a small amount at first, maybe over time you'll prove to them that you're a very serious candidate, you're taking this seriously, you've raised money from a whole bunch of other people, and now you're coming back to them because you want to do another direct mail piece, something like that. Chris dropped this link in the chat. This is a call time tracker. This is another resource from Arena, and I used this to hold myself accountable for call time. On the left-hand side, what it is in 2 week periods, every single day, what you expect to raise that day for your call time. So here's your planned amount. At the end of every day, I would put, here's how much I actually raised. And then the formula keeps a running total of how much ahead or behind schedule you are. On the right-hand side, this is scheduling call time. So the bulk of it is saying Monday through Sunday. How many hours per day can you spend on call time? And what are those hours? Like this really goes on your calendar. I would encourage you to think about making these calls during a time of day when you're not going to be out in community knocking doors or attending events. So these calls, if you have a day job, a 9 to 5 day job, make an hour of calls during your lunch break, perhaps. Yeah, Sarah's recommending morning call time when you can. Okay. Um, it is when people are going to pick up the phone. So the way this works, and then you'll track like how many calls do you actually get through per hour? And what percentage of phone calls you make do people pick up the phone? What is the percentage of people who pick up the phone who end up donating? And what's the average amount they donate? So as you go through the next few months, and especially if you're looking ahead to 2026, as you track those data points, it will give you a sense of if you need to make adjustments to your plan. So I just kept a hash mark every time I made a call, put a different kind of mark when people picked up, track those metrics, and then you'll see like, oh gosh, I am tracking behind. So I need to work in more hours of call time. Or my percentage of people who pick up the phone is low. Let me try a different time of day. Or maybe the percentage of people I talk to who donate is low. And so I need to work on my pitch. Maybe my pitch isn't strong enough. So this will help you figure out where to focus your attention. I'm not going to read all of this slide in the interest of time, unfortunately, but when you get the follow-up email, these are some tips for making that ask. Connect with the person, explain why you need it, ask them for a specific dollar amount, confirm. When it comes to a dollar amount to ask for, one rule of thumb, one suggestion I've heard is ask them to donate the amount of money that they would spend if they were taking you out for your birthday. Is this my rich aunt who's going to take us to a nice dinner and spend 250 bucks? Is this my bowling buddy and they're going to take me out and buy me a couple of beers? Think about how much they would spend for your birthday, which gives you a sense of their capacity to give and ask for that dollar amount. Okay, events. So fundraising events. This is an opportunity to collect contributions you've already asked for. So when you have an invitation to a fundraising event, it should have a dollar amount associated with it. If it doesn't have a dollar figure on the invite, it's not a fundraiser, it's a party. So you want people to know $50 gets you in the door, something like that. Have somebody host your fundraiser. The idea here is they will open up their home. If they can provide refreshments, and then you don't have to spend the money for providing refreshments, they will invite people who they know in their network. They will serve as a surrogate or an endorser for you. They are giving their stamp of approval for you as a candidate, which there are people in their lives. They're going to look up to that and follow their lead. Ask them to do call time as well to invite people to the fundraiser. This is also an opportunity to get creative. If there's something about you as a candidate, your personality, your background, have fun, be creative. This is an opportunity to really show your personality and style. Political action committees and endorsements. Groups that endorse you may donate to you. I'm going to share a couple resources for this. What I will caution you on is that not all endorsements do come with dollar amounts. Not all endorsements come with donations. I tell the story that when I was endorsed by my county Democratic Party, when I ran for office in California, not here, um, instead of them donating to my campaign, they asked me to donate to them, which was a surprise. I thought that being a Democrat and getting the Democratic Party endorsement meant they were going to give me money and help fund my campaign. But that's not the way it worked. Now, I don't expect endorsers generally to ask you to give them donations, but I also don't want you to count on those endorsers funding your campaign. Call time is really where you're going to raise most of your money. That said, you can look for groups that are aligned with you, either based on your policy positions, your ideology, demographically. Filling out endorsement questionnaires is a big job. They can be pretty long. I encourage you to copy and paste from one endorsement questionnaire to another as much as possible. And particularly for you running in municipal races, the political action committees who do endorse and who do donate, they have a really hard time finding local level races. So you can reach out to those organizations yourself. This can be a Google search. Maybe you have a friend who's a good researcher and they can help find places that might do endorsements. They can help you complete those questionnaires. Chris is going to share this in the chat. This is a resource I found from the Democratic Municipal Officials group. This is a group that does support municipal candidates and municipal elected officials. This is a list of organizations that may endorse. So look through that list when either open it now or when you get it in the follow-up email. Look for the organizations that seem most closely aligned to you, your election, your philosophy on governance, and consider applying for their endorsements. They usually will have a form on their website that you can fill out. These are really frequently daunting questionnaires, surveys. So I don't want you to spend so much time researching potential endorsements that you aren't spending time talking to voters. I fully believe that talking directly to voters is your number one activity as a candidate, but there might be some things here when you look at that list that really jump out to you. And some political action committees and endorsers will, in fact, donate. Some might not donate money, but they might support your campaigns in other ways. For example, locals, union locals in your city, in your county, if a labor union endorses you, they might have volunteers to support you. They might knock doors and hand out literature about you and other similar candidates or something like that. So also look into those labor unions. Another template here for you. This is a finance plan tracker. This is where you can keep track month by month. Are you raising the money that you planned for? So, by the different revenue streams, are you tracking to your goals? Are you falling behind? Are you ahead of plan? This will help you inform what you can spend money on. If you're ahead of schedule, if you're raising more than you anticipated, can you send more texts? Can you print more literature to hand out at the doors? Can you send a piece of direct mail? Okay, that is the what, the tactics to raise money. The question is, who does all this work? And a lot of this is, in fact, on you, the candidate. So the candidate is who people want to hear from. If you have a campaign manager, this is something that they can help you with in terms of especially researching who to call. They could also be the person who staffs you when you are in call time, who helps hold you accountable, keeps you on the phone dialing. Um, your treasurer is part of your fundraising team. You might have a compliance consultant if you are in one of those larger races like Charlotte City Council, something like that. That is your fundraising team. When it comes to your treasurer, they should be listed officially as your treasurer with the State Board of Elections, complete that mandatory treasurer training from the state, have your money at a bank, not intermingled. This is the person who will prepare and file your campaign finance reports. And then an additional resource here for you as the candidate. Or, oh, that's a really good call. Sarah said in the chat, highly recommend the candidate also attend the treasurer training. Yes, really good idea. Okay, so this resource here, the State Democratic Party, we have a treasurer handbook. This is in addition to what the State Board of Elections does. This is not instead of, but it's going to go a little bit deeper on some of the questions you might have about what does it look like day in and day out to raise money. So you can request a copy of this handbook from the email treasurer@ncdp.org. It has information on reporting schedules and requirements, day-to-day activities for a treasurer, um, tools and resources. It is geared primarily towards county parties. So some parts of that will be more relevant to you than others. There is an update to this coming in the next month that is also going to be talking about candidate and campaign specific needs. So go ahead and request that handbook. When So when you were doing your fundraising, I said front load it as much as possible, and then keep in mind important mandatory deadlines. There are fundraising periods followed by filing deadlines. Your treasurer will help you with that. You can find those details on the State Board of Elections website. And then also, there's this idea of building urgency so that people feel compelled to give now, not later, give now. So, this is why you might have received fundraising texts or emails in the past where it says, it's the end of the month, it's the end of the quarter, we need to report our fundraising soon, and we want to show strength. You can build that urgency into your fundraising pitches, and Act Blue will talk about that a little bit more in their training as well. I have mentioned Act Blue a couple of times. It is the fundraising platform of choice for Democrats across the country. It came up in last week's session as well, that the way Act Blue works is there is no flat fee to use them. They charge a percentage of the donations that are processed through their website. So I think last week we said 3.5% of what is donated through ActBlue goes back to them as fees. Couple of benefits for this. It's really the best way to collect donations outside of checks. It will help streamline your reporting. Democrats are used to ActBlue, so when they see that you're fundraising with ActBlue, kind of sends a signal that maybe you're a sophisticated candidate and that they feel like they can trust ActBlue for those donations. Okay, I'm going to zip through these last few slides and resources, and then we'll have just a couple of minutes for questions. These are next steps. So, thank you, Chris. Just dropped in the chat this schedule of upcoming trainings, particularly if you are focused on fundraising. There is a session on August 13th for building your donor list. I think that is a lunchtime session, if I'm remembering right. And I need to add the session on email fundraising best practices. So, whichever of these topics are of interest to you and you think will be helpful, attend, have your campaign manager attend, go on YouTube and watch the videos at 2x speed at a later date. If you're running in 2026, my goodness, you're ahead of the game, so fantastic. If you have not requested Vote Builder yet, please do that. And then there are Vote Builder trainings coming up. What I would say is if you are a candidate or a campaign manager for a municipal election, I think the trainings on the left-hand side here, you should consider attending. The ones on the right probably won't be as relevant. So Vote Builder 101, Vote Builder 102, which will teach you how to build phone banks, and Vote Builder 103, which will teach you how to set up canvases. Those are the sessions that I think are probably most helpful for municipal candidates. Last week, after the strategy session, I shared this campaign plan template. I will be updating that with the fundraising information. After every training session, I will be adding the basics of that training to this campaign plan. So when you get that link, you need to copy it so that you're not changing the main document, but you can do a file save as and then start using that to answer the questions that have come up in these training sessions. We do have a Discord channel for candidates. This Discord is kind of like Slack or something. It's a community messaging tool, and quite a few people have already joined this Discord. What I would say is I am occasionally posting information in there, like here the training's coming up, or I found this thing. Most of this conversation is going to be driven by you all. This is your opportunity to network with other candidates, to commiserate, to ask questions, to answer somebody else's questions, share best practices. So feel free, please join that Discord channel. And then the last slide, the NCDP staff, we are doing candidate office hours Mondays at 1 o'clock. Sarah is there, I am there, our data director, digital director, communications director. Again, this is an opportunity to ask questions, get connected to resources, to network with other candidates. It's not a prepared lesson. We're not sharing things with you. You come ask us for what you need, and we'll go from there. Okay, I am going to stop the recording, and then we'll do a little Q&A for the last couple of minutes.